So, happy Father's Day to our fathers. Can we say Happy Father's Day? Yeah. I'd like to begin by saying Happy Father's Day to my father. He was one of the most important people in my life. He instilled in me not only a pride in my British heritage and a love of history and vintage motorcycles. It stuck with me my whole life. But most importantly, he embodied in his very presence the living faith. God is first and foremost in his life. And it wasn't so much in what he said or what he did, it was a presence about him. And it shaped me profoundly. I wouldn't be who I am without it. And so today I want to talk about that presence and how important it is for fathers and for fatherhood, being a father. This is going to apply to other people as well, mothers and people that don't have any children at all, but it's focused specifically on the battle of fatherhood. Because fatherhood is a battle. It's something that we struggle with. I have 5 kids. 5 kids. And I have to say, probably I struggle most in the sense of my sense of inadequacy, of not being up to the task, of not performing as I should in relationship to my fatherhood. I carry around all kinds of secret guilt, sense of inadequacy that I'm just not measuring up. I don't love my kids enough. I don't spend enough time with them. I don't say or do the right thing with them. That I'm going to leave them with this impression that's the opposite of what I hope, of what I want, what I pray for. Being a father is difficult. I think one of the reasons it's particularly difficult is because the very things that our culture tells us we need to do to become a successful man makes us lousy fathers. So to be a successful man means to work really hard at your career. Give it all you got so that you can become a leader. You can be the one on top. Well, that requires you dedicating all kinds of time. And so to succeed in my job, I have to sacrifice the time that I would spend with my children, right? To be a successful man requires me to sacrifice my place as a father. I don't know about you guys, but there's that tension there that I feel a lot. Can I get an amen on that one? Yeah? The second way is that our culture says to be a successful man is to be competent, to know exactly what you're doing, going in any situation. But how do you be competent? How do you know what to do as a father? I mean, there's no guidebook for this. There's no checklist that says, okay, I'm doing all these things. That makes me a good father. There's no performance review, quarterly review, annual review. None of those things. You don't have those things. So you don't really know if you're doing a good job. The only way that you know is, something blows up and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I screwed that one up. Am I right? Can I get an amen? And finally, to be a successful man means that you're in command. You're in control of your situation. You ever try to control your kids? Right? You just alienate them, right? Somehow being a father means entering into and being with them. Well, how do you do that? How do we figure this out? It just seems like we fail more than we succeed. And even if we don't, we remember our failures much more than we remember our victories. Am I right? So my question is to you is, in this battle of fatherhood, how do you prepare? What do you do? Because every day is a battle. Every day you're going to fight for it, whether you're aware of it or not. So what do you do to prepare? Well, we're going to learn. We've been studying the Battle of Rephidim in Exodus chapter 17. You guys should be familiar with this account by now. Let's go ahead and turn there, Exodus 17. We're going to start in verse 8. Now Amalek came and fought with Israel in Rephidim, and Moses said to Joshua, "Choose us some men and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." Now, as Ethan said a couple of weeks ago, oftentimes the commander of an army would go to the top of a hill to watch the battle play out so they could see what needed to be done and issue commands so they could be successful at the battle. So the general of the army would watch, and then they would strategize and react to what's happening and then order the captains to move forward. But Moses doesn't do that. He just takes a staff and he climbs the mountain with a stick in his hand, and he holds the stick up. He raises it in prayer. Well, what's that gonna do? How's he gonna get anything done doing that? Let's see, Moses recognizes something. This is not just two armies at battle. This is a spiritual battle. And spiritual battles are fought spiritually. They're won spiritually. Moses isn't a fool. He's wise. And I'm telling you this. The battle, which is fatherhood, is a spiritual battle. It's spiritual because you're spiritual. And what you do has a spiritual dimension to it. And if you're a father, your battle of fatherhood, your battle for your kids, your battle for your family is a spiritual battle. And in the spiritual battle, it's not going to be won by your smarts or your commanding speeches or your great decisions. It's going to be won by the presence of God. When Moses raises the staff, he raises a symbol, a reminder of the presence of God. This staff, this is a cool staff. This staff was a gift from Jim Humston. Many of you know Jim. He's one of the greeters here at the church. He is one of my favorite people. He likes to hike. He knows I like to hike, and so on one hike, he found a stick, and Jim's like this. He finds it, and he thought of me. I don't know why, but he thought of me, and he took it home, and he spent time carving and polishing it just to bring it to me so that I could have it. He's that kind of guy. And I love this thing. I love this thing because it's not just a stick. It's got his presence all over it. I mean, he spent time carving this thing. It's a testament to Jim. And when I carry it, I'm carrying Jim's presence with me, a reminder of Jim. It follows me. You guys know what I'm talking about. You have things like this, maybe grandma's recipe or bacon dish, or, maybe your father's hammer or old toolbox. They're not just things, they have a presence to them. Because somebody has put themselves into it, their life into it. And so when you carry it, you're not just carrying the object, you're carrying their presence. It is a reminder of their presence. And so Moses takes this reminder of the presence and he lifts it up before the Lord. And he stands in prayer. There's a lot that goes into this staff. There is a lot that the staff, Moses' staff, reminds Moses of in the battles that he fights. So I want us to look at some of that because I do believe that the staff carries spiritual wisdom as to how we're to fight the battle, which is fatherhood. So let's get into the scripture here. Let's dive into Exodus chapter 4. We know Exodus 3 and 4 is one of the most famous stories about the life of Moses. This is Moses' first personal encounter with God. Moses, remember, grew up in Egypt. He was in the house of Pharaoh. He was making his way up to the top. He was going to be, right, a prince of Egypt. He decides that he wants to be a just prince, a just king, and so he sees an injustice happening and he intervenes and ends up killing a guy, and he becomes a criminal. And so he runs from Egypt and becomes a shepherd, an outcast, wandering the wilderness. He's there for a really long time. Most of his life is there just wandering about in the desert. And then we find in Exodus 3, he's tending the sheep on the foothills of Mount Horeb, and he sees something strange. So he goes over, and he sees something he's never seen before. It's so bizarre. There's a bush, and it's on fire, but it's not burning up. Somehow his eyes are opened, his ears are opened, and he hears the presence of God say, Moses, I want you to go back to Egypt. I want you to face Pharaoh. And I want you to free my people. Now, talk about a battle that I'm not prepared to fight. Am I right? Who would sign up for that one? Do you think you got what it takes? He immediately recognizes how ridiculous this is. He says, I can't even talk to my own people. If I try to convince them that you sent me, no one's going to believe me. And so what does God say? Moses answered, but suppose they will not believe me or listen to my voice. Suppose they say, the Lord has not appeared to you. So the Lord said to him, say it with me. What is in your hand? Let's do that again. What is in your hand? Moses looks. Well, it's a stick. There you go. I got all that it takes. I got a stick in my hand. You feel like you got the tools for the job? Moses must have picked up that stick while he was tending sheep in the desert. There's nothing fancy about that stick. It's just a tool for fighting off snakes and navigating the terrain and herding sheep. There's nothing particularly exceptional about the stick. It's common, it's ordinary, it's nothing. Not only that, but the stick, the staff, is a reminder of Moses' failure. Why? Well, remember where Moses grew up? He grew up in the house of Pharaoh. That meant that his dad was on top. And when his dad ascended into the royal courtroom and walked up onto that throne and sat down on his throne, do you know what he put in his hand? A staff, or the fancy term, a scepter. A scepter. Now his brother, Moses' brother, will eventually be Pharaoh. He takes Moses' spot. His name is Ramses II, and we actually have a picture of him. There he is, right there. That's Ramses II. What is he holding in his hand? A scepter. Gold, laced with jewels, a symbol of power and authority, a symbol of the presence of the Egyptian gods and their blessing on him as Pharaoh. Now, Moses was going to hold that thing. That's an impressive thing to hold in your hands. But Moses, because of his own life choices, what did he end up carrying about? A stick. A testament to his disappointment. Here's your scepter, Moses. Right? Go exercise your lead over the dirty, nasty, stinking sheep. But the staff will become a symbol and a reminder of the presence of God. Moses, take that stick and throw it down. Cast it on the ground. Take your inability to measure up. Take your inadequacy. Take your problems. Take your lack of performance. And in my name, release it. Release it. I don't know about you dads, but I often feel like all I carry about is a stick. Sometimes I do carry about a stick. Just kidding, I don't beat my kids. Just a stick. I mean, this is a task. I mean, the task of fatherhood. I mean, to have this sort of shape your children, like to lead them and guide them. I mean, what am I going to do with that? How can I do that? And then when I look at what I try to do, when I try to do it right, and I find one problem after the next, I try to say the right thing, but I end up saying the wrong thing. I try to exercise some kind of guidance, some kind of control, some kind of authority. I end up hurting people. I try to back off to give my kids freedom, and then they take advantage of it. Every time I try to do something, I feel like I'm always doing it wrong, and I'm not measuring up. And it follows me around throughout my day, right? You didn't make the practice, Wes. You were late. Your kids, they're going to school. They should have had their coat on. It's raining, and they're just in a t-shirt and shorts. Everyone's going to think you're the negligent dad. You're just carrying around this stick. And God says, throw it on the ground in my name. Release it in my name and watch what I do. So Moses takes his weakness, his ordinary, common failure, and he throws it on the ground. And what happens? He casts it on the ground, and it becomes a what? A serpent. I want you to understand, this isn't a magic trick. This is a personal message to Moses. Do you remember what Pharaoh holds in his hand? A scepter, right? Do you know what was on the scepter, on the top? A serpent. Do you know what Pharaoh had on the top of his little crown, right? His little fancy hat? A serpent. Now we've got Moses, the reject shepherd, throws this stick, all of his failure, all of his weakness onto the ground. And it doesn't just become a symbol. I mean, the serpent was a symbol of power. It's a symbol of God's presence. That's what the serpent was. It doesn't just become a symbol. It actually becomes alive with the presence of God. The very presence of God enters into his weakness and his failure and transforms it and makes it something that he never could have been on his own. What's that in your hand? Hey, fathers, what's that in your hand? Doesn't look like much. Throw it down. Release it. What I mean when I say that, I'm not just being poetic. I'm saying take all of that stuff. When the voices come into your head and say, yeah, you screwed that one up again, take it and throw it down. In the name of the Lord Jesus. And then pick up the failure, man, and see God's presence, see God's life in it. There's something wonderful here. This ordinary, common stick is filled with the presence of God. It's a very symbol of who Moses is. weak and common and ordinary, but alive with the presence of God. You know, it's the opposite with the pharaohs. The pharaohs had the fancy scepter, gold, jewels. I mean, it's something significant to look at. It's impressive on the outside. Do you know what's on the inside? That marvelous scepter? It's just wood. Common, ordinary material. Impressive to look at, ordinary on the inside. Moses, his scepter, what he will use to lead the people, looks like nothing on the outside. And yet it's filled with the presence, the life of God on the inside. I mean, there is a message here. There is a gospel message, a spiritual truth that we fathers need to receive, that we all need to receive. You know, the world tells us this. The world tells us, try to look like you're measuring up on the outside, present yourself in a way that you're better than you are, but secretly know inside that you don't measure up. And that's the life that we live in this world. And the gospel says just the opposite. It's never been about measuring up. You are more than you are because of the presence in you. You know, my task as a father, I don't know if I have the right tools for the job, but I have the presence. So he throws the stick on the ground, and the stick becomes alive. It becomes a serpent, the image of divine presence, of God's own presence. So what does Moses do in response? He's smart. What does he do? He runs away, right? He runs away because serpents are scary. Snakes are scary. Can I get an amen on that one? All right, I've been working the last couple of years on our family. We got an old pond, and I'm trying to rehabilitate this pond. And there's all kinds of critters inside this pond. I want to show you one that I found last summer. There it is, right there. That's a snake. That is scary. I found that thing, and immediately, my wife is petrified of snakes. Immediately, I knew that had to die. That had to die. I normally like animals. I love animals. I want to stay the animals, but that one has to go. So I got my sons out there, and I got my shovel, and I tried to take a stab at it, and I cut off of its tail. I'm sorry, animal rights folks, but I'm sorry, but this had to happen. I cut off its tail, and then it got really mad at me, and then I had to finish the job, all right? So I picked that thing up, and my sons are just petrified. And my middle son, Patrick, was inside at the time. And he hears some commotion. He walks outside the house, and he goes, "What's going on?" And they say, "Dad killed a snake." And I turn around with that in my hand, and my other son says, "Yeah, look, he cut off its tail." He thought that was the tail of the snake. So he goes, "Yeah, not having any of that," and walked right back inside the house. The task of fatherhood, being a father, doing it right, it's scary. Especially when we know what we're carrying for the job. It's scary. And so we want to hide, right? Bury ourselves in our work. Bring in the paycheck. Do what we need to do. What does God say? Pick it up. Right? pick it up. Grab it. Put it in your hand. Don't run away from it. And when he grabs it, it becomes a stick again. You know, most of the time I have to say, there are times in my life when I know for certain God's presence is with me and in me. I can sense it. It's just as real as it is you sitting right here before me now. But that's not most of the time. Most of the time I just feel like I'm carrying a stick, right? And there's not much life in this thing. And I want the snake. I want the sign of the power and the presence, but it's not there. All I'm doing is holding a stick. See, Moses is wise, right? He carries that stick anyway because he knows God's going to do something with it in the right time and in the right way. He's just got to throw it down, right? He'll take all of my inadequacy, my inability to perform, and my failures and my problems and my mistakes. You know, fill him with his presence, right? And that's what matters is the presence, not the performance. My dad made all kinds of mistakes. We could sit down. I could have a whole therapy session with you guys about it. But what mattered more than his performance, it was the presence. We all know, we all have our list of all failures. I want to tell you about one of them for me, just so you can recognize that I'm not up here as anybody else different than you. Just some years ago, I just gone through a divorce. Already failure, right? Okay, failure. And then I'm trying to be a dad to 3 kids. And I'm failing left and right. One night I'm working, I'm trying to get dinner ready. I'm home, and I'm busy in the middle of cooking, and my son comes up, and he's got a tooth in his hand. He says, "Dad, look, I lost my tooth." And I was busy, and I was like, "Yeah, that's great." I was like, "Tooth fairy's going to come." He's like, "All right." And he runs off, and I'm busy, and so I forgot. So the next day, I'm home working at the house. My son comes up and says, "Tooth fairy didn't come last night, Dad." And it hit me. I forgot. And so I said, "You know, Patrick," I said, "put it under your pillow. I'm sure the tooth fairy's been busy. Tooth fairy will bring you, I'm sure, a handsome reward tonight." And so he ran off. And I was busy. And I forgot. In the middle of the night, I wake up in a panic because I remembered. I forgot. And so I began to search through my whole house, trying to find some money that I can put under his pillow. And by some crazy curse, I can't find one piece of nickel, coin, quarter, anything. I go through the cushions of the couch. I go into the car. I can't find anything. They're always lying around, but there's none. And so I don't know what to do. Keep looking around, and I finally find, by some divine intervention, this little silver dollar. A silver dollar in a bag in the corner, deep down underneath one of the kids' beds. And I'm thinking, this is amazing. This is perfect. I mean, a silver dollar is special, right? I mean, Tooth Fairy's really coming this year. So I put that thing under his bed, go back to sleep. The next morning, my son comes into me and says, "Dad, did you take my own money and give it back to me?" And in that moment, the pastor and the father looked at his son dead in the eyes and said, "No, I didn't do that." And then I realized there's no way I can get out of this one. And so I said, yeah, I did. Next time you think about your own failures as a father, remember Pastor Wes, who stole his own kid's money and gave it back to him to save his own butt. That's my stick, right? It's my stick. Second Corinthians 4:6-7, for God who said, let light shine out of darkness, made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Jesus Christ. That's wonderful. It goes on, but we have this treasure in jars of clay, ordinary, common jars of clay. Why? Why is the presence in ordinary, common, failing, broken people? To show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. You and I will never love our children the way that we should. We will never love them the way we should, and we're never called to. They're God's children. They're God's children. He's the one that loves them through us in our weakness and in our failure. He's the one that leads them in our brokenness and in our stupidity. They're His own. All we have is sticks. But sticks filled with the presence of the all-surpassing glory. We're going to close today focusing on the Victory Project. The Victory Project is a ministry we're engaged in Dayton that helps young men who are struggling in difficult situations, young men who, many of whom will one day become fathers themselves. And it's primarily a ministry of presence, of being there. Let's go ahead and watch this video about the Victory Project.
So, hi, I'm Jim Schroeds. I've been a member of RPC, been going to church at RPC for quite a few years, and I've been involved in quite a few different volunteering opportunities in my lifetime, and I got involved with a volunteering opportunity in Springfield called New Day, which is a church that we prepare meals for and serve to the members of the community in and around the church in Springfield. And as part of that, and working with Randy at New Day, I learned of an opportunity that they were considering here at Victory Project. And I actually got the opportunity to come down to Victory Project with Randy very early in our process just to learn more about what they do here, to meet the leadership team and to get a sense of how we could help, how we could get involved and serve. These young men that come in here to Victory Project, anywhere ages probably from 12 up to 18 years old, they're youths that might come from broken homes. They might be in situations that are a challenge with their families. And what the Victory Project does for them, it gives them a place to go. Rather than them getting out of school and potentially being on the streets, having no place to go to study or to interact with other youths, Victory Project gives them that opportunity. It gives them an opportunity to come here and study, to be mentored, to learn, to have fellowship with one another, to pray with one another, to have chores and duties that they may not otherwise have. So it really does give them that sense of purpose. It teaches them the value not only of being committed to a skill or a chore or to something that they need to get done like their schoolwork, but also gives them an opportunity to learn how important it is to serve each other, their community, and those around them. So again, it's a great model that they have here, and I think it's really teaching these young men a lot of skills that they may not otherwise have an opportunity to learn. What we do at Victory Project is really quite simple. We prepare meals, typically at home, and we bring them in here to Victory Project in Dayton. They have a full kitchen, so we have the opportunity to actually prepare the meals right here on site if we so choose. But we prepare those meals, we bring them in, we actually serve the boys, we load food onto their plates for them, and most important thing that we do, however, is the fellowship part. We sit with the boys, we sit across the table from them. We eat with them, we talk to them, we learn about them, we tell them about our days, they tell us about their days. So really our primary objective here is just that interaction. It's that boots on the ground type of giving back, paying it forward, if you will. It's the opportunity to, at the most, maybe give the boys some advice, but at the very least, it's just giving them an ear. And it's really quite simple. It's an easy model. It's a simple part to get involved in, and it's even easier just to sit there and listen to the boys and help them any way we can. God calls us to serve. He doesn't tell us you need to do it an hour a day a week a month. He asks us just to serve. And I embrace that calling wholeheartedly. And I do it because it really, really does make a huge difference, not only in the people that we serve, but for us as well. And anybody that is looking for an opportunity, this is your chance. Embrace it, and I guarantee you'll feel the same joy, and it'll bring the same comfort in your life that it has to me.